So recently there was this thing with a Native American drummer and some kids from Covington Catholic High School, and it first came out and people got upset, and then came out the counter narrative and people got upset and people were arguing and getting upset, and then there was this other insert of this other group that was involved in some way, and we had lots of conversations on social media about this event. And ultimately, one thing that I learned, and just like, if I can learn one thing from something, and change something about myself that helps me to become a better person, then I consider it kind of worthwhile. And the one thing I learned here was that I was harboring Native American racism against that group, and I wasn't aware of it. And I want to talk a little bit about it because I may not be the only person in the room on this. And I know that on my wall, there were some other people with other ideas that I felt were doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. So what it boiled down to was people were posting the videos and expanded videos, and here's the 10-minute video, and here's the 20-minute video, and here's the video of BHI, and here's the video of the kids, and here's the video of the Indian coming up the steps. And I mean, it was just wild. And I was looking at all of this, and I kept looking at it, and I was like, it just looks like he's trying to get through the group, and he's having trouble navigating or negotiating through the group. Like, he's going up the steps, and then suddenly he's, confronted by people. And there were other people who were saying, no, he's going up there and aggressively drumming, right? Yeah, I don't know what that means, but he's aggressively drumming and getting in these kids' faces. And so there was this, ongoing sort of back and forth about, is he just trying to navigate through this crowd at a rally, or is he being aggressive toward these students? What's going on here? And finally, in all the things that I was stopping and reading and stopping and watching, like every time somebody posted an article, somebody posted a video, I would stop and let me stop and look at it and see if this changes my view. And ultimately, someone posted an interview, like an audio interview with the drummer. Mm-hmm. And he was describing what occurred. And what he was saying is they were packing up the Indigenous Peoples March. They had completed it. They were packing things up. And as they were packing, they saw this little bit of a back and forth of shouting match happening over on the steps or near the steps. And it was kind of minor at first, and then it started to escalate, and then more and more people started to get involved. And there were some people that were posting things about, like every specific of what he was describing wasn't accurate. And I'm like, he wasn't really looking at it like, he wasn't planning to witness for it in a court of law later. He was packing up his stuff, and he's kind of just noticing, and he's just given his take on, this is what I thought I was looking at, right? Mm-hmm. So here's what I thought I saw. Groups are getting, but the main things was the people were becoming more numerous, and the aggression was seeming to escalate. Yeah. And he's the guy that does the drum. So they're packing up the stuff, and he sees the drum, and something I learned is that the drum in Native American culture actually represents a way to gain attention for God. All right, so you can get God's attention by drumming. And there's also some unity aspects to it. And I did look this up on other Native American Indian resource sites. And yes, they talk about that this is how, you can get the spirit, and you can get the God, and you can get the unity and the ancestors. And, they had different ways of looking at it, because just like any groups of people, you're going to have different takes on it. But ultimately, he wasn't just making up that this is a method that we use to get God's attention. That was his way of expressing it.
Right.
And he thought that if he would go and take the drum and do the drum for that area where the people were getting angry and where the people were collecting more and more, that maybe this could get the attention of the God, and it could cause unity of the spirit, and they could de-escalate this thing. And so he's approaching people, and he's approaching this group, and he's drumming. He's drumming madly to get the attention of God, right? Mm-hmm. And here I am basically saying, oh, he's trying to get up there to do this ceremony, and then he's being blocked. And other people are going, no, he's trying to, make crap with these kids and, get in these kids' faces and be really aggressive. And it turns out that what he was doing was the cultural equivalent of, a couple Christians going over there holding hands and just praying for peace. It was that aggressive, right? It's that bad.
Right.
And when I realized what he was doing, in that moment, what I realized was that I was putting my cultural view of it, right? I was ignoring the drum. there was a drum. The guy's drumming. And it didn't occur to me to say, this is unusual. What does that drum mean? What is the significance of the guy is not just walking, he's drumming. He's got this ceremonial thing that he's doing. And what does that mean? And it didn't occur to me to ask whether or not that would be significant to this event where I'm looking at something that's very different than a normal thing from my cultural perspective.
Well, what was also interesting about that is that even if you didn't know about the significance of the drum at the time, this gentleman wasn't going over there shouting. He wasn't going over there really being antagonistic. He wasn't going there shooting. You know, there was nothing that indicated that this gentleman deserved any vitriol that he ultimately received.
Yeah, I mean, there was like mockery, you know, like mocking and stuff going on. But for me, I think the takeaway was the way that I was so quick to sort of assign motivations and assign a cultural context, which was completely ignorant of the cultural context of the person I was judging, right?
Right.
And other people were doing the same thing. And then there's all this sideline devolution of, you know, but who, you know, were there more people gathering here or was this crowd doing that? And it's like, you know, it doesn't matter. He's not really, he's just saying this is why I went over there. He's not trying to make up, you know, points about who's right, who's wrong. He's just saying this is what I was doing.
Right.
And, you know, in the meantime, somebody posted and they said, well, are you saying that not knowing all the ins and outs of someone else's culture is racist? That's racism? And I said, no, I'm saying what's racist is when you start making judgments based on your cultural ignorance of a situation, right? And it doesn't mean that you can't make a judgment, that you can't become informed and still make a judgment, right? So, for example, there are a lot of atheists who were ex-believers that come out of all sorts of religious backgrounds. And a lot of times they feel like, hey, I have a really strong understanding of that culture that I left, and I feel like I can judge it.
Correct.
Because I have a different perspective now, but I still understand that perspective. I understood it when I was in it. I haven't lost that knowledge. I haven't lost that understanding, and I understand now why it's wrong.
Right.
So just being culturally more informed about something doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be accepting of it. I'm not even saying that you have to culturally inform yourself, make your judgment valid, and that necessarily means you're going to have to offer understanding in a sense of I accept what you're doing. You can still reject what the person is doing. You can
But
reject.
it is still best to be informed.
Right. No, yeah.
And not to just make statements off the cuff when you really don't understand what they're about.
Right. And in this case, you know, it contributes what I was doing and what other people were doing. When you have those kinds of judgments and arguments that these people are being basically the pawns in, that is racist because they are people that deal with racism. And we are the people that are basically saying it's okay to argue about their situation and their context without knowing jack crap about their situation and their context. Now, people could also call it xenophobic if they want to, and I'm okay with that too. I'll be the first one to say, yeah, label me xenophobic because that's what I was doing too. I'm not going to hide from it, right? And I just wanted to kind of share that out, that I learned something about myself. Hopefully I became, you know, a little bit better today, and I hope that some other people can become a little bit better today. If, you know,
we can only hope, yes.
So anyway, that was kind of that's my whole, what I cared about on that.